Great hockey nicknames add personality to the game, and if we're being honest, it's easier to say the great one than Wayne Douglas Gretzky, right? Some players become so synonymous with their nicknames that you actually forget their real names. This is how NHL players got their nicknames, and who better to start off with than Mr. Hockey himself, Gordie Howe. When Gordie Howe first came to the NHL, he quickly established himself as more than just a scorer. His rare combination of skill, toughness, and sportsmanship earned universal respect throughout the league. The nickname Mr. Hockey wasn't given for any specific play, but gradually developed as he became the complete embodiment of the sport itself. The name fit so perfectly that Howe's family eventually trademarked it, and it remains the gold standard for hockey nicknames today. Like Howe, Wayne Gretzky also has unmatched skill and scoring ability. However, Gretzky is better known as the Great One. I mean, sounds pretty appropriate, right? Well, funny enough, this nickname started when he was just a 10-year-old phenom scoring 378 goals in a single season in youth hockey. A journalist watching young Wayne dominate players twice his age coined the nickname, and it followed him all the way through his record-shattering NHL career, where he rewrote virtually every scoring record in the book. This next nickname also belongs to a Bruins legend, and this one spread like wildfire because of its beautiful simplicity. After Bobby Orr revolutionized how defensemen played the game, Boston broadcaster Fred Cusick would simply exclaim, "Number 4, number 4," whenever Orr did something spectacular. As soon as fans heard this call, they adopted it immediately. The simple jersey number became synonymous with the most dominant defenseman the game had ever seen. However, Orr wasn't the only superstar with a legendary nickname. When Maurice Richard burst onto the scene with the Montreal Canadiens, it did not take long for his explosive speed to get noticed. Due to his blazing acceleration and scoring intensity, Montreal sports writers began calling him the Rocket. The nickname perfectly captured how Richard would tear through opposing defenses with unstoppable force, becoming the first player in NHL history to score 50 goals in 50 games. And hockey journalists, well, they were also pretty famous for giving Mario Lemieux the perfect nickname, Le Magnifique. But you know, it wasn't really English-speaking reporters who gave Lemieux this nickname. It actually came from French-Canadian broadcasters who started calling him that because of his magnificent skill and grace on the ice, despite his towering 6 feet 4 inches frame. His alternate nickname, Super Mario, came later when the Nintendo character gained popularity. Even NHL general managers are no strangers to giving out nicknames. You see, in 2005, when a teenage phenomenon entered the league, team executives compared Sidney Crosby to a young Wayne Gretzky due to his incredible vision and playmaking. And pretty soon, everybody started calling Crosby Sid the Kid. The moniker stuck so firmly that despite now being in his mid-30s, commentators and fans still use the nickname that highlights his early prodigy status. As for some other players, they got their nicknames from jersey numbers, like Super 8 or Captain Sirius. But the best nickname involving a number belonged to Alexander Ovechkin. The Russian superstar wears number 8, leading to the Great 8, a clever play on Gretzky's Great One nickname. But to make things even crazier, Ovechkin has been on a career-long chase of Gretzky's goal record, making the numerical connection between their nicknames even more fitting. And while it's generally uncool to give yourself a nickname,
you can't give yourself a nickname.
You get a pass if you're Jaromir Jagr. You see, when explaining his distinctive hairstyle to reporters in the early 1990s, Jagr shrugged and said, "In Czech Republic, mullet is national bird." The press ran with it, and soon Mullet Man became his unofficial nickname. His flowing locks became so iconic that fans would wear mullet wigs to games throughout his career. And while Jagr was one of the most skilled NHL players, the most skilled goaltender became one of the most famous, partly because his style defied physics. Dominik Hasek often flopped, twisted, and contorted his body in ways that seemed impossible. During a Buffalo broadcast, announcer Rick Jeanneret witnessed Hasek make a series of miraculous saves and shouted, "The Dominator does it again." You see, the idea behind the Dominator came to Jeanneret when he realized Hasek was literally dominating games single-handedly despite using techniques no coach would ever teach. Another goaltender who everyone knows about is Patrick Waugh, and just like previous examples, Waugh's nickname came from a perfect storm of circumstances. One version of the story is that Montreal fans believed divine intervention was helping him during the 1986 playoff run. The other, the more believable version, is that St. Patrick came from his playoff dominance coinciding with St. Patrick's Day. When asked about the religious connotations, Waugh really wouldn't comment directly, but based on how he would later talk to his goalpost during games, we have a pretty good idea of what that all means. And speaking of goalies with religious nicknames, if we said the nickname the Magic Man or Datsyukien, would you think of a Las Vegas performer or a hockey player? Well, if you guessed the latter, you would be correct because it belonged to Pavel Datsyuk, the dazzling Red Wing sender. Datsyuk was one of the slickest puck handlers in NHL history, and the nickname originated when his teammate Brett Lebda saw him perform yet another mind-boggling deke and shouted, "The Magic Man," in complete awe. And speaking of magic, we can't forget Mike Modano, who revolutionized American hockey with his speed and scoring touch. Because of his shortened last name and casual Texas cool, he earned the cult nickname Modo. Modano was, of course, the face of the Dallas Stars. But he played with such effortless skating it looked like he was floating on air, so he got the nickname that perfectly matched his laid-back personality given to him by teammates early in his Stars career. And one of the best passers in NHL history is called Jumbo Joe, or simply Jumbo. The name Jumbo Joe was widespread by San Jose broadcasters when Thornton arrived in a blockbuster trade in 2005, but the big center had the nickname long before that. After dominating physically in Boston with his 6 feet 4 inches frame, the fans in Massachusetts started calling him Jumbo, and it stuck. His impressive beard in later years only made the Jumbo nickname more fitting. One of Thornton's best friends and main rivals in the NHL is Mark Messier, Mess, the Moose. But Messier really never liked being called by animal names. When asked about the origins of the Moose, Messier simply said, "I guess it's because I was a big kid who played physical." However, these days, most people remember him as the Messiah for ending the New York Rangers' 54-year Stanley Cup drought as per his legendary status in Manhattan. Brett Hull recently said that his famous nickname came from his father's legacy. He was nicknamed the Golden Brett in the late 1980s after he emerged from the shadow of his father Bobby, the Golden Jet Hull, with his own incredible scoring touch. And 7 years later, after Brett became one of the greatest American goal scorers ever, there was another sniper who had one of the most fitting nicknames. Teemu Selanne was the rookie sensation of the 1992-93 season, the Calder Trophy winner, and a record breaker with 76 goals. Selanne was not shy about celebrating his goals, and he's mostly remembered for his famous hunting celebration where he threw his glove in the air and shot it down after breaking the rookie scoring record. His blazing speed and Finnish heritage naturally led to the perfect nickname, the Finnish Flash. Selanne's goal celebrations made headlines, however. Phil Kessel's nickname didn't come because of any elaborate celebrations, and in fact stems from his unpredictable playing style. Kessel embraced the nickname Phil the Thrill that Toronto media gave him due to his boom or bust rushes down the wing and wild shooting style, and that's how most hockey fans called him for the rest of his career. But probably one of the weirdest origin stories of someone's nickname belongs to Marc-Andre Fleury. Fleury, who got his nickname Flower simply from the French translation of his last name. Oh, yikes. You'd think a 3-time Stanley Cup champion would have something more intimidating than a delicate botanical reference, but the cheerful goaltender embraced it completely, even incorporating flower designs into his equipment. However, it is one thing to get a cool nickname, but then there are those guys that really become their nickname. I mean, their nickname literally becomes them, and nobody calls them by their real name anymore. Now, granted, there aren't many people who can say that, but for Jonathan Toews, Captain Serious, I mean, it suited him like a hand to a glove. His infamous lack of visible emotion and intense leadership style made the ironic nickname stick. Zdeno Chara was first called Big Z when he was a star with the Ottawa Senators. He was given the nickname by teammates who had just seen the 6'9" defenseman dominate the game with his incredible reach and booming slap shot. With his record-setting height as the tallest player in NHL history, the simple but effective nickname followed him through his championship years in Boston and right through the end of his career. But then, there are those nicknames that become so embodied with a person that you use that moniker so much that you actually forget their real name.
What's your real name?
Henrik Lundqvist's real name is, well, Henrik, but nobody in New York calls him that. Lundqvist got the nickname King Henrik from New York media when he first arrived from Sweden. The Rangers announcer referred to him as the King of Madison Square Garden. However, because of how Rangers fans like to shorten everything, King Henrik often became simply Hank, despite Henrik not being a name that normally shortens to Hank. Another player who's always referred to by his nickname is Razor Raycroft. His real name is Andrew, but again, nobody called him that.
Why do they call you the Razor?
It kind of came from my last name, Raycroft. Ray, Rays, and then someone came up with Razor. And
For his entire career, Raycroft was always very particular about his appearance and was always well groomed. When he was just a rookie with the Bruins, his teammates saw his sharp-looking new haircut and said, "Man, you must have used the sharpest razor in town." And the nickname stuck despite his sometimes not-so-sharp goaltending. Now, funny enough, Raycroft's teammate with the Bruins was also named Jeremy, but just like Raycroft, nobody calls Jeremy Roenick by his full first name, and all he had to do to earn that nickname was use his initials on his first hockey stick as a kid. And because he was so outspoken and entertaining in interviews, soon everybody just started calling him JR, and the name just stuck. He even used it for his broadcasting career after retirement, and for a guy who is connected with both those previous examples, it's Terry Sawchuk first, because he literally revolutionized goaltending during his era, and because he solidified the Red Wings dynasty, proving that great goaltending wins championships. Sawchuk was known by the nickname Yuki when he first came to Detroit because, again, of his Ukrainian heritage. But soon he started breaking shutout records, after which the press dubbed him the UK, and it was pretty fitting because it acknowledged both his background and incredible talent. Eric Lindros was nicknamed the Big E when he entered the league, but the pressure of being called the next one, suggesting he'd follow Gretzky's path, weighed heavily on him. At 6 feet 4 inches and 240 pounds, Lindros combined size, speed, and skill in a way nobody had seen before. When the Quebec Nordiques drafted him first overall in 1991, he refused to play for them, forcing a trade to Philadelphia, where his powerful style changed how centers played the game. Bernie Parent also went by The Wall, a nickname that reflected his impenetrable goaltending style. The Philadelphia broadcasters gave him this nickname after repeatedly watching him make spectacular saves that seemed to block everything that came his way, perfectly capturing his calm, positionally sound goaltending. His remarkable consistency between the pipes helped lead the Flyers to back-to-back Stanley Cups in the 1970s, earning him legendary status in Philly. The history of hockey nicknames wouldn't be complete without mentioning Alexander Mogilny, known as Alexander the Great before Ovechkin. After his dramatic defection from the Soviet Union in 1989, his incredible scoring touch immediately drew comparisons to the historical conqueror. His Buffalo teammate Dale Hawerchuk first made the connection, saying, "This guy conquers every defense he faces," and hockey journalists quickly adopted the perfect historical parallel for the first Russian star to defect during the Soviet era. Current NHL stars, a new generation of nicknames. A quick glance at some current NHL stars. There are really a lot of fantastic nicknames in the league right now, like McJesus for Connor McDavid, Pasta for David Pasternak, or Johnny Hockey for Johnny Gaudreau. And if you wish to find out more amazing stories from the NHL, please subscribe to our channel and we will make your wish come true.